Welcome back to the Thom Hartmann program. On the line with us via Skype, Robert Greenwald, one of my favorite people on the planet, a filmmaker, activist, founder of Brave New Films, bravenewfilms.org, a true American patriot, and an extraordinary man. Robert, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Tom. It's great to be with you as always, really.
And let me promote bravenewfilms.org, of course, your website. You are the founder of Brave New Films, and rethinkafghanistan.org, as I recall, the new piece on Afghanistan that you've done. Correct me if those URLs are wrong. Did Obama defend, did I hear this right this morning, in President Obama's speech before the Nobel Prize Committee, and now he's managed to even upset the Norwegians by not having lunch with the king, which seems to me like a mistake, but without getting into the minutiae, because the right-wingers are all going nuts. I don't want to pick on him for small stuff, but did he defend war as he took the Nobel Peace Prize?
Basically, he did. He was eloquent as only he can be. He weighed it. He was thoughtful, but he basically was justifying this decision to go to war against the Taliban in Afghanistan. So if you took away the specifics, you might get caught up in some of the poetry, some of the images, some of the historical analogies. But sadly and fundamentally, as we have discussed, Tom, and is becoming clearer every single day to people, no matter what your partisan politics are, this is a recipe for tragedy, what's going on in Afghanistan.
You know, back when Obama was first elected president, the point that I made, and I've made it God only knows how many times on this program, and in other venues, by the way, I mean, in op-eds that I've written for Common Dreams and Huffington Post and whatnot, that he was either going to go down the road of FDR or he was going to go down the road of Bill Clinton economically, and that with regard to war, he was either going to go down the road of Dwight Eisenhower, who campaigned in 1952 on a platform of peace, that he was going to end the Korean War. He said, I will go to Asia and end the war, and he did. Or whether he was going to become Lyndon Johnson, who campaigned on a platform of, stopping communism, and decided that the way that he would prove his anti-communist chops, which was sort of obligatory back then, was with Vietnam. And it looks to me increasingly like we have an economic Bill Clinton and a military Lyndon Johnson. I realize that sounds tragic and cynical. Robert, walk me back from that ledge, or let me know what your thoughts are on this.
Well, I think the Vietnam thoughts are very relevant and very important. I had just rereading The Best and the Brightest, Halverson's book about these incredibly brilliant men who got us into, up until Iraq and now Afghanistan, the worst military disaster in United States history. And I think we're seeing a similar problem. And the problem is that we have incredibly smart people who are focused on the tactics. The whole debate, Tom, was around 10, 20, or 30,000 troops. That is not a debate around fundamental core issues. The issues were never raised, the really important issues, which is, there are bad guys out there. How do you deal with them? Do you invade a country? Do you put 100,000 troops in a country to catch less than 100 al-Qaeda? Do we spend, and your audience may well know this, but we have to keep saying it over and over, $1 million for one troop for 1 year in Afghanistan? You could build 25 schools for that.
I was just going to, I almost interrupted you saying, enough to pay for 25 schools, each troop. And the other thing that people don't remember is that we took Afghanistan, we threw out the Taliban with 1,000 soldiers. Mm-hmm. I mean, yes. that was our invading force, 1,000 soldiers. And took Al-Qaeda down to maybe 100 diehards who are in the country who, what kind of power do they have? And who would, and what I really can't wrap my head around is, if we are really doing this to try to stop Al-Qaeda, why would we, first of all, there's the whole hearts and minds thing. It's Dick Gregory and I were flying over to Africa back in 1980. We started a program in Uganda, which is still operating, actually. In fact, it was originally a famine relief center. Now it's a hospital. And we were just in the middle of the night in the airplane, drinking too much wine and talking and all excited over the Atlantic. And he said, He said, you know what I don't get? He says, I don't understand why we're running around the world trying to shove our way of life down people's throats with the barrel of a gun. He said, when you've got something good, you don't have to force it on people. They will steal it. And it's like, that's what's happened. You know, at the time of the Civil War, there were 6 democracies in the world. There's now about 100. And virtually all of them are there as the result of the people stealing it, you know, saying, we want a democracy, damn it, we're going to get it. And it's just, I can't wrap my head around this idea that we are somehow going to win the hearts and minds of the Afghan people by sending soldiers in.
You know, and Thom, when you go to Afghanistan, and I was there and I interviewed an enormous number of Afghanistan people who are, by the way, not on the U.S. payroll, which is the problem when our elected officials and military go over there. They're meeting primarily with people we're paying for.
Right.
But when you talk to people in Afghanistan, and we posted this at rethinkafghanistan.com, you can see the interviews, you can see people over and over again saying to the president very emotionally, help us, but not with troops. This is the 3rd poorest country in the world. We have to keep hammering that. We're spending $1 million a troop, the 3rd poorest country in the world. Literally, people are starving to death. They need schools, they need jobs, they need education, they need health care, and we are doing everything possible to build up the Taliban by alienating the population, occupying the country, and militarizing a political and social and economic problem. It's a devastating mistake of the most profound kind.
Right, and if Al-Qaeda wants to get together and plan another attack on the United States, are they really going to try and do it in a country where they can't even get a decent internet connection? I would think that they're, you know, like the last time, they would be picking apartments in Spain and Germany or down in Tallahassee, Florida, and be doing it in places where they can get a good phone call, they can get a good internet connection, they can, you know, they have access to an airport, they can make things, they can transfer money via banks and et cetera. I mean, what am I missing?
Well, no, I think you're exactly right. And the problem becomes by spending all of this resources, all of the $1 billion, and invading and occupying a country, we're actually making ourselves much less secure because we're not dealing, this is, and it's sad, again, because you have an administration that's elected on change that's following the same old failed military policies. That, look, there are real security issues, and I do think it's important that progressives talk about them. What you just talked about, Thom, is exactly right. So we should be thinking about a strategy and a way to find those who are in Florida or are in Spain or are in Germany who are plotting to kill innocent people. That's a very real function, and the resources and energy and time and focus should be going there. International cooperation, working with police, all kinds of things that have worked, rather than things that are essentially recruiting people to oppose us and give their lives in opposition to us, which is what this invasion and occupation is doing.
We're talking with Robert Greenwald, the filmmaker, the activist, the founder of BraveNewFilms.org, and also RethinkAfghanistan.org, his latest work, one of many, an extraordinary body of work that this man has produced. And Robert, my take on all of this, you and I haven't talked about the economic side of this, and I know that that's not been your focus, right? It's been Afghanistan, and so we'll stay on that. But my take right across the board, frankly, on whether it's bailing out banksters when the average person is screwed economically, or whether it's putting $1 million per soldier into Afghanistan when we can't put $1,000 or $5,000 into a house in Detroit that's on the edge of foreclosure, is that we need movement politics in the United States. We need people to sign up to participate in movements. We need to encourage and strengthen the movements that are existing, and we need to actually, in my opinion, be even reaching out to the people who are showing up at Tea Party events who have figured out that things are broken and that things are wrong. They've just been listening to the wrong people. They've been, they've been hearing the wrong. They have been hearing limbo. Well, it's the liberals, It's just the liberals are they're causing the problem, and so and we need to be bringing these things together and doing movement politics. And what you're doing on the web is a great piece of it. In the 60 seconds we have left, Robert Greenwald, your thoughts on how people can become more involved in movement politics in the United States.
Well, first of all, I totally agree with you, Thom. We can't sit around and wait for any elected official to solve our problems. Democracy is not a spectator sport. And the work that we do at Brave New Films, and that you have been such an extraordinary help in getting the word out, is based around that. If you go to Rethink Afghanistan, there's lots you can do to get involved. You can screen the film. You can have a congressman, invite the congressman from your district to come and look at it, or a senator. You can get involved with our peacemakers, or you can go to our Sick for Profit, where we are dealing with the profiteering that goes on in the healthcare industry, because we can't wait for anybody to do this for us. There is no excuse at the end of the day if you don't do something.
Yeah, and that's sickforprofit.org, right?
Yes.
Yeah, sickforprofit.org, rethinkafghanistan.org, bravenewfilms.org. Robert Greenwald, one of America's great activists and filmmakers, and the founder of Brave New Films, bravenewfilms.org. Thank you, Robert.
My pleasure. Thank you, Thom.
Always great talking with you. We'll be back in just a second. Stick around.